Hello guys, how you doing? It's Kasim. I hope you're doing all right. I hope family's all right. I hope your week is going all right so far and things are working out for you. Welcome back to my channel. I really appreciate you listening to what I'm going to talk about today. So basically, I saw this really interesting question which said, if you had a second chance at life, would you take it? So I made some notes on it that I wanted to share with you, and I hope that maybe they can trigger something in you, they can give you something to think about in your own life. Maybe this is a question that you've never even thought about, and might be able to prompt you to start thinking about this question because it's quite an interesting question. But before I get into sort of talking about that, if you want to help me get to 1,000 subscribers by June, please can you subscribe to my channel? You would be an absolute legend. Okay, cool. So let's get into it. The question was, if you had a second chance at life, would you take it? And the answer for me, as it stands currently today, at 30 years of age, the answer would be no. And the reason why I wouldn't take a second chance at life is because I have found that many of us in life who want to take a second chance at life, essentially the foundation, the ideology, the belief system that we're operating from, if we want to take that second chance, is that of perfection. In other words, we want to go back for a second chance so that we can make better decisions. Yet, if you actually look at the level of wisdom that we have today, the level of resilience that we have today, if you look at the level of toughness that we have today, the level of ambition that we have today, the level of empathy, the level of joy, the level of contentment, the level of setting boundaries for ourselves, all of that have been a result of the track that we've had to take in order to get to here, to where we are today. And I have found that so many people in life think that the goal of life is perfection, that the goal of life is to get it right every single time. But that isn't actually true. In fact, if you look at it, the consequence of living is consequences, right? Because in order to live, you have to make choices. Okay, so if you look at somebody who has lived an incredible life versus somebody who hasn't lived an incredible life, the person who's lived an incredible life has made a lot of decisions, and the consequence of making a lot of decisions is consequences. It is problems. If you make no decisions at all, there is very few consequences. But the more decisions that you make about, should I have children, should I change, should we take our children to private school or normal state school? Should we move house? Should we upgrade our house? Should we put in a new kitchen in our house? Should we live in a suburb? Should we get life insurance for ourselves? Should we get a pension? Should we buy an investment property that we can rent out, that we can use in 20 years as our pension pot, which is going to mean that we're going to have to remortgage our house, right? Should we take in our elderly parents and look after them in their old age instead of sending them to go into a care home? To truly live mandates that you make choices. And in fact, I say to people all the time, particularly leaders, that the source of manhood is responsibility. The consequence of actually living is responsibility, is choices. Because when you have nothing to look after, when you have nothing to be responsible for, you don't have to make any choices. Right? Life is fairly easy. You can kind of live your life on automatic. You don't have to worry about anyone else. You don't have to worry about consequences of any of your actions or anyone around you and the consequences that they're living. You can just kind of plug out of life. In fact, one of the things that I've learned is, I was talking to a guy and he was saying to me, Kasim, we were talking about, I was saying to him my goals for this year, and I asked him, so what are your goals for this year? And he said, oh, no, Kasim, I don't believe in goals. I don't believe in setting goals. I just kind of just go with the flow, and I just go with how things are. And I said to him, so if you don't have goals, how do you know how you're doing, right? Because you cannot measure, you cannot determine, anything which you cannot measure means that you can't test how well you're doing on it. Does that make sense? So meaning, if you want to know, is my life on track? There is no way of knowing whether your life is on track unless you quantify your life in some way, right? That may be, okay, by 30, ideally, I'd like to be married. Now, let me say this. a lot of people tend to think that when you quantify your life and you say, actually, by 30, ideally, I'd like to be married, a lot of people think that that is trapping them, right? And that's why I go back now to what I said to him, which is that he believed that if he quantifies his life, if he makes a decision about where he'd like to be, then all of a sudden he gets entrapped. All of a sudden there's expectation, there's consequences, and that is true, right? Because if you plug out of life, if you don't want to have expectations for yourself, if you don't want to have morality, then yes, or have to make moral decisions, then of course you then don't make any choices. You then plug out of life. But then you become what my grandmother said to me. You become like a feather, meaning you're just anywhere and everywhere. You almost become invisible, right? Because you don't have anything of real value. You don't have really any strong beliefs about anything. You don't have really strong morals about certain things, right? Your life should be an expression of what you believe, what you stand for, the philosophy of life that you have, the philosophy of parenting that you have. And there's a lot of guys out there who don't want to have a philosophy about parenting, who don't want to have a philosophy about religion, who don't want to have a philosophy about how people should conduct themselves. They don't want to have an opinion about anything. They just want to clock out. They don't want any responsibility whatsoever, right? And that is one of the reasons. That's why, as I say, I steer away from anybody, and I try to avoid anybody who says anything like, oh, I don't have goals, I don't like expectations, because I know that this person isn't going to have a really strong stance on certain things. Now, in saying that, that doesn't obviously mean that you need to be somebody who has conviction on absolutely everything, right? My philosophy is of life is that we should have a mind that is open to everything and is attached to nothing. Meaning, you should have strong beliefs on certain things, but as you move through life, as you experience, as you learn, your philosophy should have a plasticity around it. It should be malleable, so that as you learn and you develop and you grow, you begin to refine, you begin to adapt your new elements of your philosophy, of the different aspects of your life. Does that make sense? One of the other things that I also realize is that people distrust people who keep winning, right? The issue is, if you are the kind of person who is even holding the philosophy that you'd go back and have a second chance at life, then you are somebody who is a perfectionist. You want to have everything the right way, but that isn't what life is supposed to be about. And because life is not supposed to be about that, a lot of people distrust people who keep winning. We don't like it. We don't like it when somebody keeps winning and winning and winning and winning and winning and winning, because it's like a facade. Because there is no way anybody can be that perfect that they win in their relationship, right? They win at their health. I commented on a woman. There's a woman on Instagram, and I commented upon her, and I said to her, I can't remember exactly what I said, but I said something to the effect of, I keep seeing her pictures on Facebook, and she's got pictures of a perfect dog, pictures of her perfect home. She goes on all these incredible holidays. She's got a wonderful partner. That, like, her life looks so perfect from the outside. And I said, as I was looking down her Instagram, I could not see a single blemish. I could not see a single imperfection. And I was like, man, this means there must be so much she's hiding. Because I said to her, if your life is revolved around you having to go to the gym, having to look amazing, having to take these photoshops, having to get dressed, having to look after your home, having to do I was like, you've never posted anything that shows us real life. Real life meaning ironing your clothing, hoovering your place, going outside and doing the gutterings. We've not seen it, and the reality is, most of life is a journey, right? Most of life is a journey. How did I put it to somebody? I said to somebody that so much of life is spent in the bridge between where we are and where we're trying to go. Meaning that if you are trying to cross a bridge, most of trying to cross a bridge is going to be spent on the bridge. The actual bit when you get to the other side of the bridge is a very, very, very small part of it. Does that make sense what I mean? And so most people focus on the goal. Most people focus on the end, the perfection, the thing that looks amazing. But that is such a small, minute percentage. And I've realized in life, people don't trust people who they only just see the end, the byproduct. I think that's why there's been such a drive today for vlogging, because vlogging allows you to see the reality of what somebody actually does, right? We see them do this production, but actually let's see behind the scenes. What are they doing to actually show us the production, right? We see somebody with wonderful dress senses. Okay, well, what is their production? What camera are they using? What is their setup? Because it shows us reality, right? We want to see the reality of life. On this topic of people distrusting people, one of the things that I've realized, and I only didn't actually clock this until last year, is around people who are single and people who are not married. So I've noticed that a lot of people distrust people who are like 35, 40 years of age, who have never been married, who are not in a long-term committed relationship, who don't have children, who don't own a home. Like, people distrust these individuals. Why? Because I was thinking about this, and what I realized was that people having children, being married, owning your own home are all symbols of discipline, of commitment, of sacrifice. And I realized that if you are somebody who's not striving for these, even though they're difficult, even though they're hard, even though many times there's chances of them failing, people can't trust you, because that means you're not the kind of person who's giving it a go. You know that in the UK, about half of marriages are gonna end in divorce. Yet you know that, and you're still going for it. You're still wanting to find that soulmate. You don't want to be alone. You want to find somebody to bind with and go through life together. And I think that's an incredible sacrifice that you have to make. And I recognize people don't consciously recognize it, but they subconsciously recognize the sacrifice that you have to make, the journey that you have to go through in order to get to that point, right? And it isn't just about having children. It isn't just about getting married. It is all of the things that come with getting married. The responsibility, the sacrifices in being monogamous to your partner, the paying for the wedding. Like, there's a lot, right? You have to sacrifice some of your choices, in that you have to think about your partner, whereas if you're single, you only have to think about yourself. And I realize people don't trust people who don't have children, or who don't have a home, or who don't have, who are not married, for that reason, for the fact that the symbol of it, that these symbolize sacrifice, determination, ambition, family, and people don't like it when people don't stand for those things. And so, going back to my point, what I've realized is, and as I was thinking about this, is that without life, without failure, you can't truly say that you have lived, right? You can't say that you've lived. In fact, I remember listening to a guy who was a CEO of Under Armour, and he said that perfection is the enemy of innovation. In other words, you can't do great things if you are trying to be perfect all the time. He said that the goal should just to do the best of what you've got at the moment, put it out there, and then start refining it, right? Meaning, like, for example, if you're trying to get healthier, of course, your goal should be to try and be as healthy as possible. But instead of worrying about having the right perfect kit, being in the right gym, the weather being perfect, having all the right running kit and the right jacket and the right shorts and the right trainers, don't worry about that. Just do the best that you can. If you've just got some shitty trainers, just use them. If you can't go to the gym and afford it, go run outside a block around where you live. Go to the local park. Most local parks have handlebars, and they have like on the kiddies toys. There's stuff if you're there early in the morning, that you can do stuff. You can do pull-ups, you can do press-ups, right? Like, you can do a lot. You can do a lot more with a lot less than most people think. And so that's what I was thinking about in regards to this question. But I wouldn't go back. I definitely would not go back because I've realized everything that I have gone through so far in my life has made me Kasim. If I hadn't done the drink driving, if I hadn't got into becoming an alcoholic, if I didn't do so badly in school, if I hadn't gone through all of these experiences, the person who you see today as Kasim, I would not even be able to have this conversation with you. There's no way, right? I needed to go that whole journey in order to be able to have the conversation with you that I'm having today. And the point is that if you try to have life perfect, if you try to basically avoid failure, avoid things being upset, avoid being disappointed, that comes with a consequence of what? Of never truly actually living. Because truly living means to fail, it means to go in the mud, it means to learn life lessons. And on this point, actually, to finish off, one of the things that I absolutely hate about people, particularly in my world of counseling, of coaching, of giving advice, is that there is a tendency for people like me, particularly when I first started out, to try and give lessons that stop or try to give lessons to you guys which try to help you to avoid failure, right? But actually, as I've matured and as I've learned more about myself and life and lessons and how to articulate things, I now actually tell you to go and fail, right? I tell you to go and experience life to its fullest. Go out there. Of course, there's a high chance that you could get divorced. 100%. I know that. I know that the data says that. But actually, my thing now to you is give it a go anyway. Because a lot of people have the philosophy that safety is better than failure. I disagree, right? Because actually, people are a lot more alert, people are a lot more empathetic. See, people. Like recently, I was listening to a woman, and she was talking she was on the news, and she was talking about all these statistics regarding how men today are basically behind. Men have a higher suicide rate. Men are doing worse than women in school. Blah 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 blah. She was talking about all of these statistics, and she said that this came to her fruition when she had a son, right? And she said it never occurred to her because she was like, I couldn't understand why everybody was talking, there were men activists until I had a son. Meaning that she had to go her entire journey of getting pregnant, of having a child, of a son being born to get to the epiphany of, oh my God, there is a lot that my son is going to be struggling against in the world. There's a lot of disadvantages that my son is going to have in the world. And she couldn't have gone through that or come to that conclusion unless she's gone through the entire journey of having a son and dating and all of that kind of stuff. Does that make sense what I mean by that? And so what I would share with you is don't make going back and living and having a perfect life your goal. Make living your goal. Make you're supposed to, life is a polarity. You're supposed to have good and you're supposed to have bad. You're supposed to have ups and you're supposed to have downs. If you only have ups, you wouldn't even know what downs are. If your whole life is just abundance and your whole life is just winning after winning after winning, you wouldn't even appreciate the win. You need the loss in order to actually enjoy the win. That's it. I'll leave it there. I hope this has been useful for you. I'd love to hear what your comments are, so comment below, send me a message. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel to help me get to 1,000 subscribers by June. But apart from that, I'll talk to you soon. See you later. Bye for now.